Good evening and shalom and blessings to you all in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Welcome to Un-Apologetics, the show where we are unapologetic about apologetics. I am, of course, your host, CJ Cox, and we're just going to go ahead and say a brief prayer before we get started here. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for the reading of your word that we'll have later today, Lord. I want to thank you for the ability to make these videos, Lord, for the luxuries to be able to have an internet to post these videos on, Lord, the luxuries of freedom of speech and press. I pray that you preserve those for as long as it be glorifying to you and your will, and your word and your ways. I pray that you lead us to, all of us, Lord, to repentance, to seek you greater, to want a fellowship with you, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, to whom all glory is due. And I ask these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. All right. Not really big on announcements. Once again, just letting you guys know we do have a Polymathis channel we're going to be launching here soon. It's Polumathhes. The little line over the E, which I'm actually not sure what you call that, but that is actually present on the E in Polymathis. So, or it might be the O. You know what? I don't even remember, and I'm not going to look it up right now. It's not important. The fact is, that channel will be up soon. As soon as it actually is up, we'll start presenting links and stuff like that. It's going to be an entertainment channel, looking at movie reviews, video game reviews, theories on these things. Excuse me. Talking about news in the entertainment industry and things like that. And of course, doing so from a Christian perspective and also a conservative perspective. So, just wanted to let you guys know about that. Also, do want to quickly name drop the American Cynic Party on Facebook if you guys are interested. American Cynic Party on Facebook. That is our main Facebook page. It's actually where all of this started. Eventually, we're going to get a website up, and we're actually going to be getting the Watchdog shows onto this channel as well. However, there we have news-specific shows. We don't talk so much about religion or faith there. My co-host is actually a agnostic atheist, so it is more secular in nature, but it is also more geared towards politics, more geared towards news. I personally call it the watchdog specifically because I consider myself to be a watchdog of certain political institutions and conflicts, namely the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the Roman Catholic Church. The show, as you could probably tell from those two things, is actually very, very heavily influenced by my own religious beliefs, but it is still more secular nonetheless. If you guys are interested in more news-oriented secular stuff, you can certainly check that out. If you're looking to have me talking but completely avoid all religious influence, well, you quite frankly should probably watch somebody else. But at any rate, that is all the announcements we really have for today. This episode is kind of going to... Yeah, let me see this. Make sure this... Okay. Sorry about that. This episode is kind of going to function as a part 2 to yesterday's episode. It is not technically a part 2. I didn't actually plan on making it a part 2, but nonetheless, it is basically a part 2 at this point. So what we're going to do today is we are going to go through a few of the different articles and talking points of yesterday that I was not able to get to due to time constraints. And we are also going to get to what I personally believe is the end result of all of this. I'm going to let you guys know a little bit of where this is going to go now, and then we will obviously get into the details as the show progresses. Yesterday I was, and if you guys are interested, you can certainly check that out. It does provide some context to this episode, so I would certainly recommend it. Yesterday I was talking about the level of moral repugnancy in the United States and how it is growing and how I think it is going to progressively get worse. I was referencing in particular the infanticide bills recently passed in New York and shut down in Virginia. And I was also referencing the pedophilia that is rampant and being accepted amongst the, quote, transgender community, unquote. With, things like having 11-year-olds strip in drag and 10-year-olds in drag, posting, pictures with naked men and 30-year-old men, I might add. And etc. So, and our point, of course, was to kind of let you guys know that I think a lot of faith leaders, and I don't say this to criticize them per se, right? A lot of these people are still genuinely, it's not they're genuinely saved. First off, let me just throw that out there. It's not like I think that these people are unsaved. However, a lot of people who I very much enjoy think that this is somehow going to get better. or that it's not really as bad as people think, or that there's only a certain portion of the population that really believes these things. Dr. Michael Brown, that's somebody I greatly respect, right, is in that camp. I think that is just false. I think that is thoroughly false, and that was my whole point in doing the video yesterday. And I'm more in line with, say, somebody like James White in that regard. When James White says the totalitarians are coming, I think he is firmly correct. Firmly correct. And I think before the totalitarians arrive, we are going to get a complete and total stripping of all morality in this country. And that is actually what this episode is about. We are going to get, like I said, to a little bit of the stories that I was not able to get to yesterday to kind of further prove the point of how far we have fallen, morally speaking. But we are also going to get to what I believe, like I said, is the end result of all this, which is basically dictatorial government, mass genocide, and starvation. I hate to sound so cynical, but this is the synagogue, so you probably should have seen this coming. Basically, I don't find it to be ironic or coincidental in any way, shape, or form that the vast majority of scoffers are also leftists, right? And even those who aren't leftists tend to be the radical right, tend to be Nazi-esque, right? So the point being, scoffers are those who are against Christianity, whether they be the secular Jewish community or the Islamic community or the atheist agnostic community, New Agers, right? Hindus, Buddhists, etc., right? They all tend to have similar political beliefs, and for the most part, they're far left anarcho-communist political beliefs, right? And I don't think that that is a coincidence. I think that that is an example of those who professing themselves to be wise are becoming fools, having rejected the knowledge of God, which they so clearly possessed. I think that basically God turns people over to their own stupid ideas and they end up killing themselves. That's what I'm going to make the case for here today. But before we do that, let's get into some of the actual articles here at hand. Like I said, we're going to start off with some more context. This is an article from queerty.com. Again, that is queerty.com, written by David Reddish. Why am I reading anything from Queerty? Well, because I want you guys to see what their side says. I don't care what our side says because I think that our side is right. I also think it is small, okay? And I think that that should be very, very obvious to people, considering how the different polls have turned out, how the elections have turned out in recent years. And I don't just mean 2016, I mean 2018 and 2014 and 2012 and all the way back really to 1992 when Pat Buchanan made his culture war speech. We have been progressively getting more and more immoral in politics, and etc. So I want you guys to see from Queerty's perspective, right? From the perspective of people who are actually fighting for this repugnancy, okay, what it is that they say about these issues, what it is that they believe about these issues, because obviously you think it's insane, otherwise you wouldn't be watching these videos, right? But you're not the person that I'm concerned about right now, Mr. and Mrs. Bible-believing conservative Christian. Conservative, which I do not mean politically, I mean that you are trying to conserve the fundamentals of the scriptures, right? You're not the person I'm worried about. The person I'm worried about is Mr. and Mrs. 24-year-old vegan voter who are going out of their way to pass infanticide bills. That is who I'm worried about, and etc., right? So let's get into this article. It's Queerty Magazine. Stormy Daniels, the most famous prostitute in the entire world at this moment, was in a Twitter feud with Tomi Lahren. For those of you who are unaware, Stormy Daniels is so popular because she had an affair with President Donald Trump, or at least an alleged affair. I certainly think it happened, though. She had an affair with President Donald Trump. She ended up suing President Trump for the ability to speak about it because she signed a non-disclosure agreement. She spoke about it anyway, despite the fact that she lost the suit and ended up having to pay like $230,000. Got a multi-million-dollar book deal, so not that she's terribly concerned with that. And Tomi Lahren, on the other hand, is a political commentator, formerly for The Blaze, currently, I believe, with Fox, if I'm not mistaken. A conservative political commentator who basically has been in a Twitter feud recently with not only not only Stormy Daniels, but also her former lawyer, Michael Avenatti, and very, very terrible rapper Cardi B. So they've been in this Twitter feud with each other, and that is the context of where we're out here. Headline from Queerty reads, "Bi Girl, Stormy Daniels comes out as bisexual in shocking Tommy Lorraine Twitter feud," which I guess is shocking to people. I don't know why. I kind of have had this assumption that pretty much every pornographic actress is bisexual in some way. I don't know. I don't see how you could possibly survive in an industry that relies upon the sexualization of women and not feel some arousal at the sexualization of women. I guess that doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm also not in the porn industry, so maybe I'm just thinking about that too much from an outsider looking in perspective. Stormy Daniels has landed herself in the spotlight again, something she's good at this time, for coming out as bisexual on Twitter, which is the main focus of this magazine, what she said, or of this article. Not what she said, which will be stated in this article, so you just wait. In one of the weirdest social media exchange in recent memory, Daniels' attorney, the embattled Michael Avenatti, got into a heated conversation with right-wing nincompoop Tommy Lorraine. Of course, got to throw out the insults there, Queerty does. The two sparred over Donald Trump's decision to serve an assortment of fast food to the champion college football team of the Clemson Tigers because, yeah, that's not something we'll get into too much here because it doesn't have anything to do with the point, but I'd just like to point out, oh my goodness, how dare the president buy these people free food for winning a game that has virtually no impact whatsoever on anything at all. I know, terrible of him. It didn't take long for Lorraine to drag Daniels into the mix, which prompted an immediate response from the porn star. Here is Tommy Lorraine's tweet. She says, quote, "I've got to hand it to you," talking to Michael Avenatti. "You've been an MVP for @real Donald Trump, and we hope you continue. Every time you open your mouth or drag the porn star on TV with you, we add another vote for Trump 2020. And then it goes on to just say the same tweet again, because it shows you a picture of the tweet, and then it actually quotes the tweet in the article. When another Twitter user suggested Daniels respond by engaging Lorraine in a fist fight, so let's just go ahead and address right off the bat, for having the audacity to say every time you mention the porn star on TV, you should have a fist fight. Okay, so we have completely left the realm of rational political discussion, apparently. When another Twitter user suggested Daniels respond by engaging Lorraine in a... I keep saying Lorraine. It's Lauren, or Lauren. Tommy Lauren. Gosh. In a fist fight, Stormy suggested she use her fists elsewhere, thus tipping her hand about her sexuality. Quote, "I'd enjoy using my fists on her. Take that how you will, wink, wink. Besides, she won't be able to spew her nonsense with her mouth full." End quote. Now, you tell me that if I made a tweet saying, "I would love to use my fists on Stormy," wink, wink, right, as if people don't know what that means, and she wouldn't be able to speak with her mouth full, as in, of my genitalia, because let's be perfectly clear, for those of you who may not understand what Stormy is saying, that is what she is saying. Would not the entire left wing of the socio-political spectrum start attacking me as having incredibly rapey language, sexual harassment? Yeah, I think they would, as they rightfully should. Okay, this is a situation where somebody, by the way, in a violent context, let's be perfectly clear here, okay? How was Stormy brought into this situation? When a fan said you should get in a fist fight with her. So we were in a violent context, and what is Stormy's response? "I'd love to use my fists on her," wink, wink. That is a very, very rapey statement. If I said that to another woman and they called the police on me, the police would have every justification to arrest me and charge me with some form of sexual harassment. That is disgusting. That is repugnant. And especially considering the fact that Tommy Lorraine is actually a straight woman, that is just disgusting. That's the only thing you can say about it. It is absolutely disgusting. And the left's response on this is as follows. Twitter users immediately asked Daniels if she was coming out as lesbian. Daniels clarified that she labels herself a bisexual. Quote, "Nope, I like to F men and women. It's called bisexual." Stormy Daniels rose to mainstream prominence after coming forward about a one-night stand with Donald Trump during the 2016 campaign. She alleges Trump tried to pay her off by offering $130,000 in hush money to keep her account of the affair silent. Daniels also signed a non-disclosure agreement about her relationship with Trump at the direction of Trump's now indicted lawyer, Michael Cohen. The attempted payoff potentially violates campaign finance laws. So, nothing in the article to address Stormy Daniels' disgusting statements. Nothing from Jack Dorsey to try and remove her for literally threatening a violent sexual assault against somebody else for disagreeing with their political views. I cannot stress this enough, okay? Nothing. What do they say? Oh my God! Stormy Daniels is bisexual, guys! Horrible, disgusting, repugnant filth. Okay? There is no other way to describe it. This level of complete and total disregard for what other people might feel, for what other people might think, for other people's bodily autonomy, apparently, okay, is nothing short of disgusting. And let me make perfectly clear here, okay, this is not the first time you have seen this level of filth, okay? Peter Fonda, that disgusting swine, that pig, that dog, okay, came out saying that Barron Trump, a 10-year-old kid, because of the parents he was born with, he did not control any of this, okay, that Barron Trump should be locked in a cage with a group of pedophiles. He said it on Twitter. He has yet to be banned from Twitter. He has yet to be removed from Twitter, even for a 24-hour period of time, okay, and yet Gavin McInnes for saying something like, oh, I don't know, Western civilization is better than other civilizations, which is a fact, okay, gets removed from Twitter for the rest of his life, right? He can't come back. Alex Jones gets removed, can't come back because he went after a certainly not news reporter? Are you serious? Are you literally serious here, Jack Dorsey? You punk. I mean, I don't see how you could possibly get more clear with this. And it's, once again, not just Peter Fonda. James Gunn had a whole bunch of pedophilic tweets on his Twitter, which, for the record, may have been jokes. It's possible, okay? They certainly didn't sound like jokes to me, right? We had signs up outside of Trump Tower saying, rape Melania. We've had a whole bunch of people go after Melania for being whore, for, you know, which, by the way, I just like to point out something, okay? I do not necessarily disagree. I want, of course, in the case of any of these women, them to change that, to turn around, to seek the Lord. That would be ideal here, okay? However, let's just point out, when the left is saying disgusting things like, hey, Barron Trump should be locked in a cage with a room full of pedophiles and also rape Melania because she's just a whore anyways, not only is it immensely hypocritical, not only is it immensely disgusting and even downright frightening, but it is also incredibly hypocritical, right? These are the, hey, believe all victims people. These are the, hey, we live in a patriarchy that sexually objectifies women people. These are the, hey, shut down the porn industry because it's too rough, or we should have the right to have our breasts out because, I don't know, that, I mean, it's a huge whopping contradiction, feminism. But nonetheless, these are those people. But let's just endorse the rape of 10-year-olds and also apparently political commentators we disagree with. Why not? Right? And let me be perfectly clear, let me be perfectly frank. If you think they are not serious, your head is in the clouds. Okay? Your head is in the clouds. We have seen assaults on women for having the audacity to be pro-life. Go to LifeSite News, you can look up the very famous example of the man kicking a woman for being pro-life. There are much less famous examples of women being threatened with gang rape for being pro-life. One woman in particular was actually raped for being pro-life. Like I said, go to LifeSite News, look up all these articles, you will see exactly what I am talking about, okay? This is the goals of this disgusting leftist side. This is what they are going for. And the reasons for this are their rejection of Christ. We cannot be more clear on this issue. When you reject God, God pulls himself out from your culture, and this is the result. And it gets worse for the rest of you guys out here, for me, for the rest of us who live in the United States, because not only do we end up completely losing our moral compass? But quite frankly, there is quite a bit of, result, effect, right, etc., on the political spectrum from this. We've already, of course, gotten to the legalization of infanticide. That was yesterday. But how many of you are familiar with the, quote, Green New Deal? Right? The Green New Deal is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, one of the most insane politicians in the history of the United States, coming out basically saying that we need to completely destroy the American economy because of this fictitious, what would you call that? Boogeyman, right, of climate change. Excuse me. And let me be perfectly clear. It is fictitious, okay? It is a new religion for people on the left to try and rally behind because they need some sort of a purpose in this life that also doubles as a way to take everybody's freedoms away. Okay? When they said 2019 would be the year that we had no ice caps, well, it's 2019. And we still have ice caps. Shockers! I know, right? It's almost like climate scientists can't be trusted at all. It's almost like global warming is a myth, completely and totally devoid of facts. It's almost like 97% of scientists doesn't mean anything because they're just regular dudes with political agendas, I might add. But nonetheless, Ocasio-Cortez has this new Green New Deal, right? Which is basically trying to get us to Stalinist Russia. So let's go through the different details, okay? This is from NPR. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez releases Green New Deal outline. Whether it's a deadly cold snap or a hole under an Antarctic glacier or a terrifying new report, there seems to be constant reminders now of the danger that climate change poses to humanity. And it's all false. Once again, let me be perfectly clear. It is false. Lies. Not true. Deceitful. Insert word that describes something that is untrue here, preferably an adjective. Doesn't technically have to be, I don't think. That it just simply is. When they said Cali would be underwater in 2014, wrong. We'd be out of gas by 2015, wrong. Late great planet Earth in the 1970s, we're all going to die, wrong. Oh, we're going to have too much trash, even though trash is going down. And the population won't be able to make it past 4 billion, even though we're almost at 8, and etc. Wrong. Every single time. You have more likelihood getting the truth from a fortune cookie at your local Chinese buffet. Okay, I'm 100% serious. If anybody can comment one single time that a fortune cookie was accurate, congratulations, you have officially proven fortune cookies more accurate than climate scientists. Because at least one time, it was true. At least once. Right? Let's continue. There seem to be constant reminders of the danger that climate change poses to humanity. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, and Senator Ed Markey, another Democrat from Massachusetts, think they have a start to a solution. Thursday, they are introducing a framework defining, which Thursday is actually already passed, of course. Nonetheless, they are introducing a framework defining what they call a Green New Deal. What they foresee as a massive policy package that would remake the United States economy, and they hope eliminate all United States carbon emissions. Yes, 100% elimination of all carbon emissions is the goal. That's a really big, potentially impossibly big undertaking. Quote, even the solutions that we have considered big and bold are nowhere near the scale of the actual problem that climate change presents to us, Ocasio-Cortez told NPR's Steve Inskeep in an interview that aired Thursday on Morning Edition. She added, quote, it could be part of a larger solution, but no one has actually scoped out what that larger solution would entail. And so that's really what we're trying to accomplish with the Green New Deal, end quote. So what is the Green New Deal? In very broad strokes, the Green New Deal legislation laid out by Ocasio-Cortez and Markey sets goals for some drastic measures to cut carbon emissions across the economy, from electricity generation to transportation to agriculture. In the process, it aims to create jobs and boost the economy. In that vein, the proposal stresses that it aims to meet its ambitious goals while paying special attention to groups like the poor, disabled, and minority communities that might be disproportionately affected by massive economic transitions like those the Green New Deal calls for. Importantly, it is a non-binding resolution, meaning that even if it were to pass, more on the challenges to that below, it wouldn't itself create any new programs. Instead, it would potentially affirm the sense of the House that these things should be done in the coming years. Now, that is true. I would like to make perfectly clear that that is true. However, if you have a Congress that is controlled by progressive leftists, if you have a progressive leftist president, then this does not become non-binding anymore. It becomes a goal that they actually want to achieve. Okay? So let's be perfectly clear here. Just because it's non-binding does not mean that they do not actually want to do these things. They just don't currently have the power to do so. Importantly, I just said that, sorry. Lawmakers pass non-binding resolutions for things as simple as congratulating Super Bowl winners, as well as to send political messages, for example, telling the president they disapprove of his trade policies, as the Senate did in the summer of 2018. All right, now here we get to the actual document. Let me zoom in here because it is kind of hard for me to read. All right. Recognizing the duty of the federal government to create a Green New Deal. In the House of Representatives, Mrs. Ocasio-Cortez substituted the following resolution, which was referred to the Committee on blank. Does not actually say. So, resolution. Whereas the October 2018 report titled, quote, Special Report on Global Warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius. Oh, man, sorry, this is really small text. It's just very difficult to read. Let's see if I can get a full screen mode on here. Just one moment. Sorry about that. There we go. That is much easier. All right. By the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the November 2018 Fourth National Climate Assessment Report found that, quote, 1, human activity is the dominant cause of observed climate change over the past century. 2, a changing climate is causing sea levels to rise and an increase in wildfires, severe storms, droughts, and other extreme weather events that threaten human life, healthy communities, and critical infrastructure. I would like to see any proof of that. I would like to see any proof of that. I'm sorry, the proof just simply does not exist, is what I'm saying. Okay? There's no proof whatsoever that the sea levels have risen, that temperature has risen. In fact, temperature has actually gone down in the last 25 years. Little fun fact for you. But nonetheless, we continue. Global warming at or above 2 degrees Celsius beyond pre-industrial levels will cause A, mass migration from the regions most affected by climate change, B, more than $500 billion in lost annual economic output in the United States by the year 2100. $500 billion, I'd just like to point out, is literally nothing compared to the $56 trillion that this deal requires, okay? Wildfires that by 2050 will annually burn at least twice as much forest area in the western United States that was typically burned by wildfires in the years preceding 2019. D, a loss of more than 99% of all coral reefs on Earth. E, more than 350 million more people to be exposed globally to deadly heat stresses by 2050. And F, a risk of damage to $1 trillion of public infrastructure and coastal real estate in the United States, which once again is literally nothing compared to the $56 trillion that they will. And by the way, this is not backed by any facts whatsoever. She's just saying this stuff. She's just saying, oh, this is what's going to happen if we don't fix climate change. Why? Well, because I said so, right? 4, global temperatures must keep below 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrialized levels to avoid the most severe impacts of a changing climate, which will require A, global reductions in greenhouse emissions from human sources of 40 to 60% from 2010 levels by 2030, and B, net zero global emissions by 2050. Net zero. That is impossible. Go to any factory on the entire planet, including nuclear, which is the cleanest energy that we have the capability of actually making at this point, and you will see there is carbon emissions. It is not possible to get rid of carbon emissions. By the way, breathing, you freaking moron, also creates carbon emissions. So you're going to have to deal with that as well. But we'll, of course, get to that because, as this bill shows, Ocasio-Cortez also has a problem with farting cows. Whereas because the United States has historically been responsible for a disproportionate amount of greenhouse gas emissions, that is false. Having entitled 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions through 2014, that is false. And has a high technological capacity, the United States must take a leading role in reducing emissions through economic transformation. Okay. So for those of you who do not know, the United States is actually one of the leaders in clean energy. And in fact, right now, we are the number one leader in exportation of energy, period. Nations who produce high amounts of carbon tend to be nations that are developing. Would you like to know why? Because oil is very easy to get and it's very easy to convert into energy. You know what's incredibly difficult to convert into energy? Solar energy, wind energy, hydro energy, nuclear energy, other forms of clean energy. And poor people in Africa are not capable of building mass solar panels to keep themselves warm. Okay? So if you would like to start reducing carbon emissions, you go tell starving, freezing kid in Africa, hey, that heater that we finally gave you after 100 some odd years of you guys not being able to have heaters, yeah, we got to take it away. Sorry, Ocasio-Cortez said so. Disgusting. Whereas the United States is currently experiencing several related crises with, one, life expectancy declining while basic needs such as clean air, clean water, healthy food, and adequate health care, housing, transportation, and education are inaccessible to a significant portion of the United States population. False. Incorrect. Nobody is starving in the United States. I challenge anyone to show me starving people in the United States. It is not true. There are food banks in every single city on the planet, including those with less than 1,000 people in them. Okay? Every single one. On top of that, you have EBT cards, which are, of course, non-charitable, whereas food banks are. Nobody is going starving in this country. That's just false. Okay? Education, I'm sorry, education is compulsory until the age of 18. No, nobody's going without education in this country. That is a lie, false, not true, etc. And this whole thing about life expectancy going down, yeah, that is true. You want to know why? That's because fat people are going up, and drug addiction is going up, and people getting prescribed antidepressants is going up, and the suicide rate is going up. You know what it has absolutely nothing to do with whatsoever? Freaking climate change. Nothing at all to do with climate change at whatsoever. I would like anybody to show me even the smallest amount of evidence that climate change has anything to do with the decreasing life expectancy rate in the United States. Bogus. Nonsense. And by the way, for any of you guys saying, well, I haven't seen you presenting the evidence. Yeah, that's because I'm proving a negative here. I don't present the evidence. You, the one making the claim, presents the evidence. Okay? That is how debate works. Sorry that you didn't learn that in the high school classes that you obviously failed. Moving on to a 4-decade trend of wage stagnation, deindustrialization, and anti-labor policies. Oh my goodness. That has led to hourly wages overall stagnating since the 1970s despite increased worker productivity. False. 100% inaccurate. Okay? The minimum wage has literally doubled and a half since the 1970s. That is just simply not accurate to say that we have had wage stagnation. And the amount of billionaires that has increased since that time is almost triple. So that's obviously not wage stagnation. And etc. Right? We go on. Right now, we are currently experiencing, I think, 4 to 6% wage growth every year. But, you know, that little detail is just something that she wants to throw out because, you know, why would anyone care about the details? The third worst level of socioeconomic mobility in the developed world before the Great Recession. Oh, man. I can't handle this level of stupid. The erosion of the earning and bargaining power of workers in the United States, despite the fact that labor unions have increased in power. Inadequate resources for public sector workers to confront the challenges of climate change at local, state, and federal levels. And 3, the greatest income inequality since the 1920s, with the top 1% of earners occurring 91% of gains in the first few years of economic recovery since the Great Recession. And B, a large racial wealth divide, she says. A racial wealth divide. right? Large racial wealth divide to a difference of 20 times more wealth between the average white family and the average black family. And then C, a gender earnings gap that results in women earning approximately 80% as much as men at the median. Okay, so let's take this apart one by one. She says the top 1% of earners occurring 91% of gains. That's not true, first off. It's 40%, so try again, miss, I can't do math. But secondly, why is that wrong? Somebody explain to me why that's wrong. What is wrong with Jeff Bezos' $170 billion? He earned it. I'm sorry, did you come up with the idea for Amazon? Oh, no, you didn't. That's right. That's right. No, you came up with this retarded Green New Deal. That's what you came up with. So, in other words, your contributions to the economy, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, are robbing people at gunpoint, and Jeff Bezos' contributions to society are one of the most successful companies of all time, currently driving down everybody's rates of purchase, currently driving down how long it takes for people to have their products arrive to them, currently driving down, all the different, what would you call that? What would you call that? The different, bargainings between companies and sales, right? In other words, you don't have to go to multiple different companies and say, hey, I want you to sell this product because you're a bookstore, and I want you to sell this product because you're a toy store. Amazon says, hey, we'll sell all your products, right? Which, of course, is brilliant, drives down the price of goods, etc. That's his contribution to society. What's yours? Oh, yeah, that's right. You said you wanted to rob us all at gunpoint and ban cars and planes and stuff like that. But whatever. Nonetheless, let's continue here, right? Oh, what happened? There we go. Sorry. Next thing she says is the large racial divide amounting to a difference of 20 times more wealth between the average white family and the average black family. That's interesting, considering the fact that 19 million white people are currently on food stamps and 11 million black people. It's almost like you're completely incorrect, but whatever. A gender earnings gap that results in women earning approximately 80% as much as men at the median. See, and this is one of the reasons why you always need to understand just how deceptive people actually are. If you take 100 women and 100 men, is it true that the women will have a net income of 80% of what the men has? Yes. Is it true that if you take 100 women with the same education, putting out the same amount of work in the same jobs as those 100 men? No. In fact, that is illegal. Let me say it again. That is illegal. You go to jail for doing that. Okay? So then the question, of course, becomes, why do these 100 women earn roughly 20% less than these 100 men? Well, because they don't work as long, they tend not to be as educated, and they tend not to choose the same kinds of jobs. I'm sorry, if you have a problem with that, then get more educated, work more, and choose better jobs. Okay, it's 100% your fault. And if you don't have a problem with that, well, then stop complaining about this gender wage gap. Okay, if you want the money, you need to earn the money. Period. End of the conversation. There is no room for dispute on this. But we continue. Whereas climate change, pollution, and environmental destruction have exacerbated systematic racial... So climate change is to blame for racial disparity, I guess. Exacerbated systematic racial, regional, social, and environmental and economic injustices, referred to in this preamble as systematic injustices, by disproportionately affecting indigenous peoples, communities of color, migrant communities, deindustrialized communities, depopulated rural communities, the poor, low-income workers, women, the elderly, the unhoused, people with disabilities, and youth, referred to in this preamble as a frontline and vulnerable communities. So, yes, climate change disproportionately affects you because you're 16 and female, and also black, because reasons. Makes perfect sense, does it not? Whereas climate change constitutes a direct threat to the national security of the United States, one, by impacting the economic, environmental, and social stability of countries and communities across the world, and two, by acting as a threat multiplier. Whereas the federal government led mobilizations during World War II and the New Deal created the greatest middle class that the United States has ever seen. False. That was done in the Gilded Age. But many members of frontline and vulnerable communities were excluded from many of the economic and societal benefits of those mobilizations. And whereas the House of Representatives recognizes that a new national, social, industrial, and economic mobilization on a scale not seen since World War II and the New Deal era is a historic opportunity, one, to create millions of good, high-wage jobs in the United States, two, to provide unprecedented levels of prosperity and economic security for all people of the United States, and three, to construct systematic industries. Therefore be it... Wait, what? Now, therefore, be it. That doesn't make any sense. Now, therefore, be it resolved. There, that's what it is. Okay. That is in the sense of the House of Representatives that... I'm going to pause here real quick because there is something that needs to be noted here. Okay, number one, the New Deal racked up trillions of dollars of debt. It is what started our current debt crisis. So there's that little detail that Ocasio-Cortez doesn't want to tell you. Furthermore... that was not nearly as expensive as this Green New Deal. Not even close. Not even 1/3, not even 1/5, not even 1/10. Okay? That is just simply not the case. 1/10 of actually what she wants right now would be $5.6 trillion. $5.6 trillion. Okay? The entire budget of the United States is $3.7 trillion. And we never make that much money. The last time we had a balanced budget, which means that we spent less or equal the amount of money we actually made as a nation, was 1994. I wasn't even born yet. Okay? That is how long it has been since we have not actively gone into debt in order to pay off that $3.7 trillion what would you call it? I just literally just said the word. Expense, right? She wants at least $5.6 trillion a year, at least. We don't even make our current budget, but whatever, right? Moving on. One, it is the duty of the federal government to create a Green New Deal. According to whom? According to you? Well, who the hell are you? Some 28-year-old former bartender? Yeah, I think I'm good. It is the... blah, 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 already said that. To achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions through a fair and just transition for all communities and workers. B, to create millions of good, high-wage jobs and ensure prosperity and economic security for all people of the United States. How? How do you plan on doing this? Where are these millions of jobs just going to come from? Are you just going to eliminate all federal jobs and say, oh, hey, look, I created 1 million new government jobs because you robbed them? Because there's a word for that. It's called communism. Anyways, to invest in the infrastructure and industry of the United States to sustainably meet the challenges of the 21st century. D, to secure for all people of the United States for generations to come clean air and water, climate and community resiliency, healthy food, access to nature, and a sustainable environment. And E, to promote justice and equity by stopping current, preventing future and repair. So by stopping current, preventing future, and repairing historic oppression of indigenous peoples, communities of color, migrant communities, deindustrialized communities, depopulated rural communities, the poor, low-income workers, women, the elderly, the unhoused, people with disabilities, and youth. Basically, everybody who's not a white male. Okay, that is essentially what this goes. You know, she just goes on and on and on. The idea that somehow climate change is just, I mean, I love the women one. That one is hilarious to me because people like to pretend that women are a minority. Newsflash, they're not. They make up 53% of the population of the country, but, you know, who cares about the facts, right? They also make up 51% of all new college graduates. They also make up 60% of all new hires. The basic fact of the matter is our society currently actually endorses femininity over masculinity, and every single statistic on the planet proves it beyond any shadow of a doubt. Okay? If you disagree, present some sort of evidence. Because all the evidence I can see, which is literally all the evidence, says that you're incorrect on this matter. But nonetheless, we continue. 2, the goals described in subparagraphs A through E of paragraph 1, referred to in this resolution as Green New Deal goals, should be accomplished through a 10-year national mobilization, referred to in this resolution as Green New Deal mobilization, that will require the following goals and projects. A, building resiliency against climate change-related disasters such as extreme weather, including by leveraging funding and providing investments for community-defined projects and strategies. B, repairing and upgrading the infrastructure of the United States, including by eliminating pollution and greenhouse gas emissions as such is technologically feasible by guaranteeing universal access to clean water, to reducing the risks posed by climate change impacts, and by ensuring that any infrastructure bill considered by Congress addresses climate change. Infrastructure bill. You can't build stuff unless we address climate change in the bill that says you're going to build stuff. Brilliant, I know. C, meeting 100% of the power demand in the United States through clean, renewable, zero-emission energy sources. Let me say that one more time. Meeting 100% of the power demand in the United States through clean, renewable, and zero-emission energy sources, including, and I'm going to go into the including, but newsflash, not freaking possible. Not possible. You cannot do that. Okay? Once again, go to nuclear energy power plants, the cleanest energy on the planet right now, and you will see lots of emissions coming out of those smokestacks. Lots of them. Would you like to know why? Because in order to produce energy, you also need to expulse energy. It is simple science in that regard, and there's literally no way around it. It's actually the second law of thermodynamics. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It simply disperses into a new form, or changes form, as the actual law states. E, building to upgrade, D, sorry, not E. Building or upgrading to energy efficient distributed and smart power grids, and ensuring affordable access to electricity. Notice she has not actually said how she's going to do any of this so far. Upgrading all existing buildings. Upgrading all existing buildings. So do you like having a house? Well, too bad, because Ocasio-Cortez wants to upgrade it. Do you like your place of work? That sucks, because Ocasio-Cortez thinks it should be rebuilt. Once again, upgrading all, A-L-L, meaning every single one, existing buildings in the United States and building new buildings to achieve maximum energy efficiency, water efficiency, safety, affordability, comfort, and durability, including through electrification. 5, spurring massive growth in clean manufacturing in the United States and removing pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from manufacturing and industry as much as is technologically feasible, including by expanding renewable energy manufacturing and investing in existing manufacturing and industry. Translation: taking your tax money and giving it to energy companies who are making their energy through solar or wind or hydropower or etc. Not nuclear power, because despite the fact that it is the cleanest and most efficient form of energy we have, she says later on in this bill that we're not going to use nuclear energy because that's, I don't know, cruel or something stupid. G, working collaboratively with farmers and ranchers in the United States to remove pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the agricultural sector as much as technologically feasible, including by supporting family farming, by investing in sustainable farming and land. So now we're using taxes to pay off people's farms. Land use practices that increase soil health, and by building a more sustainable food system that ensures universal access to healthy food. Overhauling transportation systems in the United States to remove pollution and greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector as much as technologically feasible, including through investment in zero-emission vehicle infrastructure and manufacturing. That means a complete and total ban of cars, because guess what? Your cars produce emissions. Clean, affordable, and accessible public transit and high-speed rail. Now, interestingly enough, this high-speed rail, actually, it was said by Ocasio-Cortez, should be made so high-speed that it renders air travel impossible. In other words, she wants us to take trains to Hawaii because she thinks that's possible, and she wants us to do so at the same speed as you take a plane to Hawaii. Which I guess makes sense when you have all of 1.5 brain cells, right? But here's the thing. There's this little cool thing that airplanes do. They fly, right? And when you fly, you can, go over all the stuff that is on the ground because you're in the air. I know it's a really weird concept, but when you get in the air, right, there's no trees and cars and roads and stuff and other things that you see on the ground because you're in the air. You see what I'm saying, right? So you can go in a straight line towards your destination because you're in the air. I know this is a really weird concept. It's like, the Wright brothers are just returning, having to explain how air travel works. People don't even know how air travel works. That is the level of stupidity we are at right now. This woman does not know how freaking flying works. Anyways, moving on. Mitigating and managing the long-term adverse health and economic and other effects of pollution and climate change, including by providing funding for community-defined projects and strategies. removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere and reducing pollution by restoring natural ecosystems through proven low-tech solutions that increase soil carbon storage, such as land preservation and afforestation. Sorry, I thought it said deforestation for a minute. I thought that was really weird, but it said afforestation. Restoring and protecting threatened, endangered, and fragile ecosystems through locally appropriate and science-based projects that enhance biodiversity and support climate resiliency. I'd like you to find one science-supported program that does any of those things. Notice she doesn't name them. That's because they don't exist. Cleaning up existing hazardous waste and abandoned sites, ensuring economic development and sustainability on those sites, identifying other emissions and pollution sources, and creating solutions to remove them, and promoting the international exchange of technology, expertise, products, funding, and services with the aim of making the United States an international leader on climate action and to help other countries achieve a Green New Deal. 3. A Green New Deal must be developed through transparent and inclusive consultation, collaboration, and participation with frontline and vulnerable communities, labor unions, worker cooperations, civil society groups, academia, and businesses. And I'm actually surprised she mentioned businesses. Kind of one of those things that you would think she doesn't think should exist, but I guess maybe she's not entirely sure how communism works either, which would be entirely unsurprising to me. To achieve the Green New Deal goals and mobilization, the Green New Deal will require the following goals and projects. A. Providing and leveraging in a way that ensures that the public receives appropriate ownership stakes and returns on investment, adequate capital, including through community grants, public banks, and other public financing, technical expertise, supporting policies, and other forms of assistance to communities, organizations, federal, state, and local government agencies, and businesses working on the Green New Deal mobilization. B. Ensuring that the federal government takes into account the complete environmental and social costs and impacts of emissions through existing laws, new policies, and programs, and ensuring that frontline and vulnerable communities shall not be adversely affected. C. Providing resources, training, and high-quality education, including higher education, to all people of the United States. So we're also going to give people compulsory education all the way up to college as part of this Green New Deal, because that reduces climate change somehow, I guess, right? Of course, it doesn't. The only thing it does is get us closer towards Ocasio-Cortez's Stalinist goals, but, it's all in the name of climate change, bro. You just got to care for the environment, man. Providing resources, training, and to the frontline vulnerable communities so that all people of the United States may be full and equal participants in the Green New Deal mobilization. Making public investments in the research and development of new clean and renewable energy renewable energy technologies. That's funny. Technologies and industries. E. Directing investments to spur economic development, deepen and diversify industry and business in local and regional economies, and build wealth and community ownership while prioritizing high-quality job creation and economic, social, and environmental benefits in frontline and vulnerable communities, and deindustrialized communities that may otherwise struggle with the transition from greenhouse gas-intensive industries. F. Ensuring the use of democratic and participatory process that are inclusive and led by frontline and vulnerable communities and workers to plan, implement, and administer the Green New Deal mobilization at the local level. G. Ensuring that the Green New Deal mobilization creates high-quality union jobs and pay prevailing wages, hire local workers, offer training and achievement opportunities, and guarantee wages and benefit purity for workers affected by the transition. So apparently, we are also going to ensure that everybody has a high-paying government job, complete with a labor union, and benefits, as well as raising the minimum wage, because that will somehow get rid of climate change as well. Or it's just another step towards Stalinist communism that is, once again, being thrown under the guise of just protect the environment, bro. And remember, for those of you guys who have watched my Watchdogs, this is something that I have talked about frequently, right? I've always known, as have numerous other people on the right, I didn't come up with this idea, okay? We have always known that climate change was going to be what they used to try and turn us into a communist nation, okay? It's been something we've known since Al Gore ran for president back in 2000. This is not news. Guaranteeing a job with a family-sustaining wage, adequate family and medical leave, paid vacations, and retirement security to all people of the United States. So you have a guaranteed job, that's communism. Complete with a family-sustaining wage, that's also communism, adequate family and medical leave it sounds like communism, paid vacations and retirement security to all people of the United States. Who ensures this? The government. What does that mean? Communism. No way. It's almost like the entire plan is filled with communism. Strengthening and protecting the right of all workers to organize, unionize, and collectively bargain free of coercion, intimidation, and harassment. That's funny. So basically she's saying allow the workers to coerce, intimidate, and harass, but not allow businesses to coerce, intimidate, and harass. How about nobody is allowed to coerce, intimidate, and harass? I kind of like that idea. But that's not very communist of me. Strengthening and enforcing labor, workplace, health, and safety, anti-discrimination and wage and hour standards across all employers, industries, and sectors, which is already done. We have laws that prevent you from discrimination in the workplace. Enacting and enforcing trade rules, procurement standards, and border adjustments with strong labor and environmental protections to stop the transfer of jobs and pollution overseas and to grow domestic manufacturing in the United States. Moron, how do you plan on growing domestic production in the United States when you want to literally make production illegal? Okay, you say we can't have any carbon emissions. I'm sorry, how do you think people make toys? They're literally made out of oil, you moron. Okay, go look up the chemical composition of plastic. Not kidding. I mean, come on, use our brains here, right? You do not simultaneously increase manufacturing whilst also saying, hey, you can't use the methods of manufacturing to manufacture things. That is not how it works. Moving on. Ensure that public lands, waters, and oceans are protected and that eminent domain is not abused. I would love to see that, but I'm sure that's not going to happen considering everything else I've read in this bill. Obtaining the free, prior, and informed consent of indigenous peoples for all decisions that affect indigenous peoples and their traditional territories, honoring all treaties and agreements with indigenous peoples, and protecting and enforcing the sovereignty and land rights of indigenous peoples. Now, I don't actually have a problem with this particular portion of the bill, but I just have a question. What does this have anything to do with climate change? Are violations of Native American rights somehow causing the climate to heat up? Because that sounds real stupid. Sounds like something that my niece would come up with. She's 5, by the way. Turning 6 at least, so I guess you have the intelligence of a 6-year-old, not a 5-year-old. Obtaining the free, prior, and informed... I already said that, sorry. Ensuring a commercial environment where every business person is free from unfair competition and domination by domestic or international monopolies. Oh, my goodness. So you can't be better than someone at business. That's not allowed. Oh, my goodness, this hurts. My brain hurts. I can't deal with the level of stupid in this bill. Providing all people of the United States with high-quality health care. Sounds like communism. Affordable, safe, and adequate housing. So we're going to get government housing. That actually really sounds like communism. Economic security and clean water, clean air, healthy and affordable food, and access to nature. So we're going to have government-mandated water, government-mandated food, and I guess government-mandated access to nature. I don't really understand that one. I have perfect access to nature. I can just, walk down to the local green belt. Perfectly sure that all of you are perfectly capable of that as well. You may say, oh yeah, well not in New York City or Los Angeles, man. Yeah, well there's also 8 million people in New York City, so no duh. And Los Angeles is built in the middle of a freaking desert, so no duh. But, once again, we're back to this whole using our brain thing. And there you go. There's the end of the, what NPR lists here for all the different things in this New Deal. My brain is hurting, I'm sorry. So, what's the point of me telling you guys all of this stuff? Well, if you go here to a new article, we won't actually read the whole thing because it's not important. 70% of Democrats would consider voting for AOC, which is an abbreviation for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, if she were old enough to run for president. The biggest political story since the election of Donald Trump is the sudden, stark, sustained rise of political artists, also known as AOC and Beto. The big picture, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, and former Representative Beto O'Rourke, who is a Democrat from Texas, are political and cultural phenomenon, one known by her initials, one only by his first name, like Drake or JFK or RG3, because those are totally legitimate comparisons, I guess. Forget the fact that only one of those persons is actually a politician, but whatever. Both arose from nowhere 7 months ago during the midterms and today are everywhere. Both are hotter than establishment Democrats and social platform. Both are hotter than establishment Democrats on social platforms and among staffer wannabes, the press, donors, and activists. A new Axios/SurveyMonkey poll finds that 74% of Democrats and people who lean Democrat would consider voting for Ocasio-Cortez if she were old enough to run for president. She's 29, and you have to be at least 35. The 17% who would definitely vote for her, there are 17% rather who would definitely vote for her, and the other ones are obviously just considered. What is the? I lost them. John Cohen, SurveyMonkey's chief research officer, tells me, quote, this data shows the phenomenon is real. She tops Senator Schumer in favorability among Democrats and overall nearly rivals Speaker Pelosi. Both AOC and Beto continue to break through news cycles clogged by Mueller and the shutdown. This was published, obviously, when the shutdown was still a thing. Ocasio-Cortez, described by Bloomberg's Businessweek as the darling of the left, nightmare of the right, is driving an actual policy debate on taxes, Medicare, and free tuition. Last week, she taught a social media class to older House Dems. O'Rourke, who is 46, gets coverage for hitting the road on a solo road trip to fuel 2020 buzz and shake off what he called a funk after losing to Senator Ted Cruz. But one Democratic operative tells the New York Times that some chaff at his Beto first politics. Really no necessity to read the rest of the article. They just go on to talk about the different accomplishments of Ocasio-Cortez and O'Rourke, which of course are little to none. But the point there is that 74% number. 74% of people in the Democratic Party have said that they would consider voting for Ocasio-Cortez, someone who, as I just read to you from her own words, wants to ban cars, wants to completely socialize all healthcare, all food, all water, all transportation, all education, okay, all the way up to the college level, ensure it's universal, make sure that we have planes and cars banned and that we have rails that are capable of going at the speed of planes and apparently taking us to Hawaii and Japan as well, I guess, because that is just brilliant. Makes sense, right? In other words, this is not, okay, N-O-T. This is not a fringe belief, okay? And Kamala Harris, who is running for president on the Democratic side, and Cory Booker, who's also running for president, and Elizabeth Warren, who's also running for president, okay, have all come out in firm support of this Green New Deal. Okay, in firm support of banning cars, in firm support of a impossible zero emissions goal over the next 10 years, in firm support of completely destroying the airline industry, okay, revitalizing every single building in the United States. Every single building in the United States. You just built your own house? Well, that sucks, because it doesn't fit with Ocasio-Cortez's plan, right? Utterly ridiculous. And this is not a fringe belief. I understand that this is a lot more political than our episodes usually get, but you need to understand something here, okay? It is not an irony. It is not a coincidence that all of these people who happen to be as vehemently anti-God as one could get also happen to be supporting these policies. It's not a coincidence. I'm sorry. It's simply not. It is said explicitly in Romans 1 that those who knew God but did not glorify him as God eventually reject God, and God also rejects them. And what does it say happens when he rejects them? That he turns them over to their own lusts, that professing themselves to be wise, they become fools. He destroys the wisdom of the wise and the intelligence of the intelligent, etc. You can go on numerous different verses. It's not just Romans 1, though Romans 1 is the go-to for this. It is not just Romans 1 that states what happens when a nation leaves God. Okay, it is in no way coincidental that the New Agers, that those with no moral compass whatsoever, that the agnostic atheist community that has become so vocal, okay, it is no coincidence whatsoever that they are the ones driving this communist agenda. In fact, in the immortal words of anti-theist philosopher and social critic Christopher Hitchens, being communist requires atheist worldview, because it requires you to make the claim that we, the government, are the only ones who are going to move forward for human progression. Okay, you can find that quote from Christopher Hitchens. He is one of the most well-known atheist philosophers of all time, and I'm not saying that necessarily his views go for everyone, because you are seeing a lot of people who are waking up from this, but notice the people who are waking up from this, right? People like Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin is somebody who was, at least formally, on the left. I don't really know what his views would be at the moment, right? And he has recently gone as far as to say that despite the fact that he doesn't believe in God, he is finding it impossible not to, because he sees the results of what the anti-theist side is doing. Namely, these ridiculous social programs of wanting to completely revitalize the economy and have the government be in complete and total control, right? So you're even seeing a lot of people who are agnostic atheists on the leftist side who are starting to realize this is kind of odd how so many of the anti-God side seem to be so vehemently communist, seem to be so, emphatic that we need to reduce climate change. It's a very weird coincidence, right? And I am telling you right now, it's not a coincidence, okay? Read Romans 1, those who professing themselves to be wise became fools. Why? Because they knew God and glorified him not as God. It's all right there, prophesied nearly 2,000 years before it happened. Not necessarily prophesied as in it was going to happen to America, but that every nation who does this thing, namely knowing God and not glorifying him as God, will have these results. Okay? That is where we're at as a society right now. And if you don't believe me, go check out the recent infanticide bills in New York. Go check out the pictures of 10-year-old boys being pictured with 30-year-old naked men, and the left saying, oh, that's anti-LGBT of you to point that out. Okay? Go look at Peter Fonda saying that Barron Trump on Twitter needs to be locked in a cage. He is 10 years old, let me remind you, okay, that he needs to be locked in a cage with a bunch of pedophiles. Why? Because he had the audacity to be born to Donald Trump. Twitter never banned him. Why? Well, because Twitter's also leftist. Twitter enjoys this, right? Jack Dorsey is just as evil and disgusting as Peter Fonda, right? As is Zuckerberg, as is Ocasio-Cortez. They're all in the same boat. And it is not, I repeat, it is not a coincidence that all of these people happen to have such a massive hatred, both for morality and for God, and of course for the family unit as well. But I'm actually 7 minutes over my time. I'm supposed to end these at an hour. We are currently at an hour and 7 minutes. So, I'm done. If you guys are interested in more expressly political content, I do have the Watchdog. It is over at the American Cynic Party page on Facebook. I know that this was a much more political episode than we usually get into, but as I was showing you guys here at the end, there is a point to it. Okay, there is a point to it. I would be reading Romans 1 again, but unfortunately, like I said, we're out of time. If you guys want to, if you're more interested in me keeping up with the political spectrums, obviously go to the American Cynic Party. You can like and follow us there on the Facebook page, and you can check out our watchdogs there as well. We do post our Un-Apologetics there every time that they're uploaded to YouTube, so you can also get access to our content on religion there as well. If you guys are interested, you can obviously go to Terrestrial Earthbird, the Synagogue, on Twitter, where you can follow us there. Go to Cynic Thought on Instagram and follow us there. Or go to ACP Official on Gab and follow us there. Of course, also the American Cynic Party on Facebook, as previously mentioned. We do obviously appreciate your views. Comment any questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms in the comments section down below. Anything that is not vulgar or outright insulting will, of course, be left to stay. And by the way, let me just make something perfectly clear. You guys can insult me. I really don't care. It's insulting of other people on the comment section that I will not allow. And, of course, express vulgarity. Like, for example, if you say something along the lines of what Peter Fonda said, yeah, I'm going to have to get rid of your comments. Sorry. But pedophilia is disgusting. So that's really where I'm at with it. If you are interested in our content, of course, please do subscribe. We always appreciate your subscriptions. Always definitely helps us out here. Like and share this video if you feel that it is worth it, and do remember to always give God the glory. Let's go ahead and say a brief prayer before we leave here. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for having the ability to make these videos. We do currently live in a country that, though it seems to be dwindling, is still free enough to have free press, free speech, and things of that nature, freedom of religion. I just want to thank you for giving us these luxuries. I pray that, if possible, you may lead this country to turn away from this abject wickedness, amorality that has just perverted our culture, so much so that you're even seeing it spewing into our own politics. And I just pray that you find some way for us to come through this, if it be your will. We give you the glory in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. All right, well, I mean, that's all we got. I know it's somber. It's not necessarily fun. There's no silver lining to this, but, you know, unfortunately, sometimes the truth doesn't have a silver lining. So hopefully we'll have a not quite as depressing topic next time, not quite as political topic next time. Shalom. You guys have a great evening.